Hey everybody, Jeff Pelliccio here with Allied Insight, your all-in marketing partner, and this is From the Grove. When the year opened up, there was an expectation that it would yield a pretty positive outcome. However, we didn't necessarily count on the market shifting from being a candidate-driven market to an employer-driven market. We also didn't anticipate so much market uncertainty. With that said, there was an underlying change that's taking place that we all have control over and could potentially really change your trajectory for the year. So let's talk about what that is. Oftentimes, a lot of B2B professional service organizations kick off a lot of their initial contacts with the services that they sell. The problem is that is not really generating the results that we want. And in fact, it's really producing a diminishing return, if anything else. So what we need to be doing is aiming a bit further up the funnel to have more meaningful conversations that show us off as industry experts in order to gain trust so that we can earn the opportunity to have the conversation about the services that we sell. But how do you do that? Great question. So the way that you do that is this. First, you have to have a topic or a hook that is going to really engage with your community and meet them where they are. That topic or hook can be based on one of a couple different fundamentals. It could be something that is maybe market condition related, so something that's really impacting either an industry or a sector. It could be something that is perhaps annually structured, so maybe they're doing certain practices or processes throughout the year, and you could meet them there to provide additional education or support. Or perhaps there is sort of like that innovation education piece, right? Like where are most people missing best practices? Where is it they can get the best bang for the buck? What's the low-hanging fruit that maybe they should be taking advantage of? Regardless of what the topic or hook is, it's also important to make sure that your team is equipped to actually have that conversation. Once you've determined what the value add is that you're going to bring to market, at that point, marketing can create the support structure to make sure that you have the resources you need to push this forward. So before we go into some additional ways that you can communicate with your community, let's talk about what the baseline marketing structure is, because it's pretty simple. Number one, you need a landing page that communicates all the information that you have regarding the solution that you're providing in a way that lets them see themselves in the solution, right? It's the aftermath of them having this positive experience with you. Where is it that they are better off, and how does their world look? Second, you need some thought leadership pieces that are sort of attached peripherally to this main concept that you can then use both from an SEO perspective, but more importantly, as an enablement resource that your team can use as they're nurturing individuals throughout their communication and within their pipelines in order to bring greater insight and greater awareness to a given cause that all is optimized to go back to a particular landing page. Following that, you need to have obviously social media to echo those things out further, which not only gets into the areas where your brand exists, but it also gives opportunity for your people to, again, extend their personal brands in a corporate setting so that way they could drive people into the resources to make them aware of the problem so that way they can get them to a landing page. And this is the bare minimum. If this does remarkably well, you can then springboard into secondary assets, workshops, webinars, panel discussions. You could do things through different communities that you help and participate, right? And if it doesn't do well, if it's run its course and you got as much as you can out of it, then you already have a structure and a system for your next resource that you're going to go live with. And at that point, it's a matter of figuring out what are the conversations that are happening at the front line and whether or not you could build a resource that helps to serve that. So that gives you your topic and the hook. It also tells you your baseline for marketing. So let's go in a bit further. In terms of the communication and activity, a lot of times we talk about things in terms of emails and we talk about phone calls. And I understand, I get it. Sales is a number game, but it doesn't have to be that way, yeah? Like sales is a numbers game, but it can also be a really smart numbers game. And so you want to think about what it is that you're requiring your teams to do with those emails and calls. So as opposed to just the one-to-one contacting a business about the fundamental needs that they have, what are the requirements to build a community or to participate in a community? So there's lots of groups and forums and all kinds of things everywhere. Do you have a strategy that your team is supposed to be imposing in order to gain more traction with a group of individuals that could very well use your services? Do you want to maybe go out on your own and build your own community of individuals that could use your services? What about partner networks? Are there other companies that are trying to entice and talk to your clients in the same way that you are, but offering different services? Is there maybe some collaboration that you could do with those other organizations? And this continues to move on, right, with regards to like the events that you're attending, things that you're hosting and stuff like that. But if you don't forward think how it is that they're making these phone calls and what it is that they're trying to do to be a bit more strategic and deliberate in the market, then you likely will end up with what you get. Yeah. So you won't necessarily like gain more traction or evolve, but you likely will see a continued diminishing return on the efforts that you perform. The next is the expectations, yeah? So a lot of times we have expectations regarding the phone calls and the emails that we do just to make sure that we communicate a particular thing or get a certain portion of education across the fence. Now, with that said, it's important, but what if you considered the goals of the engagement as a bit more broad reaching so that way they're more like milestones that get pushed past as opposed to the fundamental thing that needs to be done on that specific call? So perhaps there is a goal regarding education of this topic or concept. The second goal might be advising on that topic or concept. The third might be identifying different existing gaps or obstacles that you can already see with the individual that you're dealing with. Maybe even testing their willingness to partner with and or find some other resources that can help them with their problem that they're having. You know, that really brings you into the space where you can really start to show off who it is that you are and how your 6-star services can help support them and fill this gap or help them with this obstacle. Now, again, it's a 6-star service that you're providing. And if you haven't considered yourself as a 6-star, maybe that's another fundamental area that you could focus in on, right? Because if you can create a 6-star experience, then you can focus on people's satisfaction. And if you can focus on their satisfaction, then you can gain advocacy. But if you don't think about how you can exceed their expectations and you don't build that as a part of your process and model, then you may not get to satisfaction and therefore they may not share your name. So the last piece of this puzzle is build out, right? And the thing that I like to keep in mind with building things out is I'm looking for information I don't currently have, and I also want to make sure I can get an accelerated adoption. So with the information that I don't already have, you've got individuals that are already in the market, at the front lines, handling all the conversations, dealing with the objections and everything else. Go to them and have them included in this process. They're going to tell you the things that they're encountering in the marketplace. They're going to identify the different obstacles that they have. You might be able to help them come up with some different ways that you can overcome those objections. At the same time, you can make sure that the resource that you're building lines up to that community. Second, if they're giving their input, then they also have ownership in the thing that you're doing. And it's in that ownership that the adoption becomes a lot easier after the fact. And the only way that you're going to have this whole thing work out the way that you want is that you make sure that you also train on it. So your training is going to include obviously what the resource is. It's going to include the expectations of how it's going to be used. It also includes the expectations of what the follow-up is and how things are being recorded, as well as the feedback that you need in order to make sure that you can keep things moving. Yeah. So once again, train on the resource, train on the delivery, train on the expectations of follow-up and also the recording of the information, as well as train on how to get feedback in. And listen, if you want to be a master of the networks, if you want to be a master of the markets that you serve, it is really important to make sure that that feedback comes in and that you really digest it, right? You digest the data, you digest the anecdotal information, and you make decisions based on your organization and the markets that you serve on what your next best step is. Everything else should be following you. I hope this is helpful. I know that it's a lot. I know that this market is also a bit tricky and sticky, but if it sounds like you're in a similar circumstance and you want to have a conversation about, what it is that's going on in your existing organization and maybe ways that you can evolve it slowly or phase things in, let me know. I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you, give you some advice, and point you in the right direction so that you can also have a good year. Otherwise, I hope this has been helpful, and stay tuned. We'll have more insights and more stuff from the Grove for you. Thanks a lot.